On today's episode of the Raptors Real Talk podcast, we dive into the Domantas Sabonis discourse as apparently he could have been a Raptor at the trade deadline, and we dive into some final roster moves and some potential extensions for RJ Barrett and Jamal Shed. Welcome into the Raptors Real Talk podcast. Is Chris Lambert and Svi Rovenchuk. It's a hat day here. It's not because our hair's messed up. We were both just feeling the hat vibe. Svi, how you doing this week, man?
Well, personally, my hair is actually messed up.
Oh, I don't have enough hair to be messed up, I guess.
And honestly, doing a lot better knowing that Domantas Sabonis could have been on the Raptors and wasn't. So
Oh, okay.
feeling pretty good about that one, not gonna lie.
Okay, well, that story first kind of came out from Anthony Slater of ESPN. I guess I'll let you go first because we may have differing opinions on this. So you go for it. Let me know what you think. The package, was supposed to be something centered around RJ Barrett, and it was almost finalized. It just kind of fell through.
Yeah, so I got the article in front of me right now, and there's one big takeaway that I have on this immediately, and it's just that Jakob Poeltl's contract is going to be the problem that everybody thinks it's going to be, because according to Slater, the Kings nearly traded Sabonis to the Raptors at the deadline in February, and Sabonis was open to the move, as far as, the sources say, and the package would have been built around RJ Barrett, but the problem was that the Raptors were unable to get off the 3-year, $84 million remaining on Jakob Poeltl's contract, and that is what doomed the deal. So, my thoughts go to a couple things immediately. Number one, yeah, that Yak contract really is as bad as everybody kind of says it is because Domantas Sabonis himself has an awful contract valued at over 40 million a year for the remaining years on that deal, which is my main reason why I never wanted Sabonis on this team. And if you can't get off Pirtle in a deal where you're taking back a contract that is as bad as Sabonis, that really, I think, goes to show you how much I think the front office blundered by giving Pirtle the money that they did. And as far as Sabonis himself as a player goes, hey, I mean, on a personal level, I'm not the biggest fan of Domantas Sabonis. I think there's a lot worse players out there, and I think he's fine circumstantially in the right fits. I also just think it's hard putting him in any sort of quote unquote right fit when he's making what, like 42 a year on his deal. So
I think this
didn't
season coming up, it's 48, if I'm not mistaken. Like he's nearing 50 million.
yeah, I believe in the final year of his contract it would be around that price. Let me take a look.
Yeah, that's
Right. So
nuts.
in the upcoming last year would have been 42. In the upcoming 26-27 season, it's 45.4, and then 27-28 it's 48.6. That's a
Yeah,
lot of money
yeah.
for, a on his best day borderline all-star center. So
Yeah,
not the
at
biggest
this
fan
point
of
in his
it.
career,
Yeah.
definitely a borderline all-star. But I I liked the idea of Sabonis because I still think later into his career, even if he was making 48, I found that would be better value than a Jakob Poeltl making 28 at that point, and where they're both similar age things. I also thought with Sabonis, from an immediate impact standpoint, that was the rebounder this team needed. I mean, he's led the NBA in rebounds several times. And while his defense isn't great, you had guys that could cover things up with, Colin Murray Boyles on the weak side, Scotty Barnes on the weak side. But now I look at it and I'm like, I'm happy they didn't do it. I also project like long term, and this is like based off of pretty much him just shooting the three ball well in 2020. Was it 24, 25, where he shot the three ball pretty well? That over his career, he'll start to step more and more outside and start shooting the three ball a little bit and add a bit of spacing to his game. But looking at it now, I'm very happy the Raptors didn't pull a trigger on this move because it also probably would have limited them from even potentially being able to go for a guy like Kawhi this offseason. And I can't even imagine how spacing would have looked with Sabonis and BI in the play. Like I think the DHO ability of Sabonis is a fun thing, but I think the Raptors are probably happy that move fell through at the deadline.
Yeah, Sabonis has had his moments where he's contributed to winning basketball, both in Sacramento
Yep.
and in Indiana. So I can kind of get the appeal. For me personally, I'm gonna not reference back to the contract situation because I could do like 2 hours on like why that is such a bad deal. Just know that is where I firmly stand that the Sabonis contract is easily one of the worst in basketball. Quite frankly, between that and the Sacramento Kings also employing Zach LaVine, they have just I'd say two of the 10 worst contracts in basketball, period. Well, maybe Levine isn't as bad now that you're kind of hitting the final year, but that aside, in terms of a pure basketball fit, I get a couple of the things that you're pointing out in terms of the attractive parts of his game, like the rebounding. The defense scares me, but at the same time, like you got these guys like to your point, like RJ, sorry, not RJ, CMB, Scotty, those big wings that can kind of make up and help you like mask Sabonis just a little bit. But I also think at the core of their strength, when the Raptors are at their best, they're playing these like uber switchable lineups. They're playing like these defensive hounding lineups where you got like your Jamal Sheds, you got your Scotty Barnes, you got your Colin Murray Bulls, you have your Jacoby Walters, you have, for a fun term to I guess kind of unite them all. You have these demons that are absolutely
Yeah.
just giving hell to the team that they're going up against.
They also are playing fast too.
Yeah, and I don't think Sabonis fits well with that.
That's
And
fair.
just when what your highest paid player at well, I'd have to compare his contract to Scotty. I think he's more expensive than Scotty. But when your highest paid player is somebody that you can't feature in what you envision as your best lineups, that's tough.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
it would be a totally identity shift if they were to bring in Sabonis on how the team would play, how the offense would be ran. This is the issue though. You go back to the Jakob Poeltl thing, and like you said, if you couldn't move Jakob Poeltl's contract plus RJ Barrett, who we heard the Kings were really into, and like he seems like a Sacramento King type of player, that it, it says a lot about what we could be looking at and going forward because the extension hasn't even kicked in yet. Like it's a tough spot for you to be in if you're the Raptors. But is there any other center on the market that you would potentially be looking at? A Miles Turner, maybe? Like, where are you with the center position for the Raptors?
Yeah, I think Turner is a buy low guy that you can really talk yourself into. He had a bad year with the Milwaukee Bucks last year, but I mean, A, that team was being coached by Doc
Everyone
Rivers.
did. Yeah.
So, yeah, and to your point, B, everybody on that team had a bad year. Giannis was barely around, and that was the guy that you brought in, Miles Turner, to play with. So, I think Turner is a guy that to, if you're really looking to get off that Pirtle contract, Turner yeah, 26.5 mil this year. That's steep. That's steep for a guy that just had a down year, but he had a down year because he didn't get to play with the guy that was supposed to make him look good and he was supposed to be partnered with. So, if you're gonna take stock into anybody, that's not a bad name to suggest. I do kind of worry about the rebounding with Miles
Yeah,
Turner.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. I his spacing and I think on his best day, he's also a really good defender on his best day, which not as consistent at this point in his career, but I just don't know if there's an obvious option that you can kind of turn to immediately. I think if you're the Raptors, this is kind of a bit of a wait and see. Maybe Jakob Poeltl plays his way a little bit closer to his contract figure, and that makes him easier to trade down the line, or he just ends up being that long-term guy that you were hoping he would be. That's a little more unlikely in my opinion, but I, if you're the Raptors and you're talking center, I just don't think there's an immediate name that you can point to and just be like, that's our guy.
Yeah. No, I agree. Maybe a guy like if you're cool with the transition, maybe a guy they think is their guy at center. How would we start with Trey Jemison, who signed the final two-way spot with the Raptors? I view him as kind of a margins merchant for this team, a guy who's gonna play like 30-ish games, playing like 10 minutes a night, filling in when Yak needs a rest or this guy needs a rest there. Won a championship with the Knicks last year, but he also spent time with Lakers, a team that you cover very closely. So I'm wondering what your evaluation is of TJ.
I yeah, he's got a buttons. I mean, like he's exactly what you would expect from a two-way guy. Like he's nothing glamorous. He has his moments, I guess, where he looks capable-ish. I don't know. I can't get over the fact that my main memory, mind you, of Trey Jemison is just that Lakers team that he was on had no, and I mean no front court depth whatsoever. This is post Luka trade. You had Jackson Hayes. That was the only serviceable center on the roster who could get minutes. You were competing with guys like Alex Len, who never left the bench, and like Trey Jameson. Anytime he went out there, he was just Not great. Like the Lakers eventually ended up settling on playing like a lot more small ball minutes where you had like either a LeBron or a Rui Hachimura or even a Dorian Finney-Smith
Yeah.
playing that small ball five. That is what they thought of Trey Jemison, right? Like they didn't convert him to a full-time contract when they had him there, nor should they have, quite frankly,
Yeah.
to have that extra body for the playoffs. They just kind of looked at this guy. He played spot minutes for the Lakers, and they ultimately said, "Hey, we'd rather run these like undersized forwards at that spot because they are giving us far more value than you are." So I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't have a particularly high opinion of Trey Jemison, but that is at this point, there's at least been one season removed of NBA basketball since there. Do I think he's suddenly gonna hit his stride with the Raptors? Probably not. I think, yeah, to your point, he's a fringes guy. He will maybe get minutes here or there depending on the matchup and depending on how you feel about Trace Jackson Davis. Just
Mhm.
yeah, not a
Um,
team to like.
Something I'll throw out there too, I kind of just thought of is it's like the New York Knicks lost Mitchell Robinson. They've been on this crunch to find rebounding. They signed Andre Drummond. If Trey Jemison, if they thought anything of this guy, he would be back on that team in some sort of form. So that's actually a massive red flag to me that a team like the Knicks, this guy just won a championship with. I mean, he was part of the team. He didn't play, but it's very interesting to me to now think like, oh wow, like this guy's traits are rebounding and play finishing, and the Knicks just lost a guy who does exactly that, and they didn't even think twice about letting him sneak away to an in-conference rival. So I actually might write about that when we get off the thing here because that's a really good idea. Anyway, the other guy they brought in, if we have nothing more to say about Trey Jemison, because that's where we are in the offseason, because Kawhi Leonard, the trade doesn't want to get put through. But hey, if you don't get Kawhi Leonard, who's an elite defender, the Raptors got something better at training camp. Andre Jackson Jr., a lockdown guy. He went to UConn. He played for the Bucks for 3 years. He looked like a rising like defensive menace in his rookie season, and then he just had zero offensive aggression to his game and just couldn't put the ball in the basket if he was like playing against a bunch of people that were blindfolded at times. Like no offensive bag, but a really muck it up type of defensive dude. What do you think about him? And also because the Raptors don't have two-way spots, do you think actually no, I'll let you say. What do you think about him?
Yeah, he is somebody that is kind of over the year. It's so okay. I'm just gonna go back to part of the conversation that I was talking about with Turner, where it's so hard to evaluate last year's Milwaukee Bucks roster. Where man, I don't know. I don't know what Doc Rivers is doing coaching in the NBA in the year 2026. So just with that alone,
Fair.
with all due respect to Doc, who's been a good coach at other stops in his career, but just not
Eh,
Milwaukee. Good, good, good.
Serviceable.
Serviceable. Sure, let's go serviceable. Definitely
This
was
one has
not
just
serve.
turned into a Doc Rivers hate episode. I think he's caught 12 strays at this point. Continue.
But yeah, it's hard. Like you look at Jackson and man, like he shot 32.8% last season, right? Like that's bad. That's really bad. The three ball wasn't falling, it was at 25%. There's not a lot of good things you can say about the offense like last season, but there's also not a lot of good things that you can say about the Bucks in general last season. So I think with any guy kind of coming from that program, my same question is going to be like, okay, were you the problem, or was the environment and the team structure or lack thereof kind of the issue with that squad? Because I don't think anybody really knew what they were doing. And he's had some more encouraging, I guess, moments of looking like a potential role player in the NBA in his first two seasons. And then, yeah, it all kind of fell off a cliff, I would say, in 2025, 26. So I wonder how much a change of environment could maybe help him, and I think that's maybe where you talk yourself into that training camp deal for him a little bit. But, would I be buying a high stock in him? Yeah, maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to throw out this idea too. Do you think he's just a guy? He has the reputation as an elite defender. He's a guy who they're throwing into training camp to just mess things up and make life uncomfortable for guys that already have established spots and make guys maybe work a little harder because he has a pedigree as a winner in college. He was effective for the Bucks for 2 seasons on playoff teams. Like, does that hold any weight to you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the craziest idea out there to think that, you want your stars kind of being challenged in training camp when the time comes. So maybe that is part of it to your point that, hey, this guy can go out there and even if he doesn't make the team, he can make Scotty Barnes uncomfortable like while he's out there, and that forces Scotty to kind of level up in training camp, even more so than I'm sure he already has from working hard during the off season. But yeah, that could be a part of the play. I think you're definitely onto something there.
Yeah. With I don't even know. Like when you look at the way the back half of this roster is constructed, I mean, you look outside of your Jamal Sheds, you look outside of your Jacoby Walters, your Colin Murray Boyles, no longer Jonathan Mobo. Like you look at this roster, is there anybody on a two-way on this team, whether it be Chucky Hepburn or Elijah Martin, who is not a two-way, or Jaden Bradley? You look at those, like, is there one of them you expect a little step up from this season? Because I mean, we do have to assume that this team at some point is going to deal with injuries, not just because of their past, but because that's the way the NBA season goes.
Yeah, I think Elijah Martin is obviously the guy that you kind of look to and you kind of get hopeful with. This is a guy that was a really fun watch with the 905 last year. And I think if you're going to envision a future for anybody there, like that's the guy. Um, I'm kind of I'm not as high on the rest. Like I think Martin's really the guy that you're looking to and hoping for, a significant stride that makes him playable in a pinch when you're kind of down bodies due to injuries.
Fair enough. Okay, we'll move on because we have to still talk about the rest of this roster, the way that's shaking up. So when you look at the rest of this roster, or sorry, the two open roster spots, and you look at the free agent pool, is there any guys that stand out to you, or would you like me to go through the four names I have written down? You can let me know how hot or how cold you are on the Raptors signing those guys.
I like that. Give me your four
Okay.
names.
So Bradley Beal.
Ah, lukewarm, I
Okay.
get. Let's start with lukewarm on Bradley
Okay.
Beal. I think the pros, he's a good offensive player. Look,
Yeah.
I think Bradley Beal for a very long time got a bad reputation as a player because his production did not match his money. I think that much was super clear. He was a good basketball player making elite superstar money.
Yep.
I think,
Okay.
but
Lindy Waters.
um,
This is
Colds
one I
just
really. Oh
Just
no,
just
this is
not
one
a
I
name
really
that
like.
hey, you can feel free to disagree. You can tell me why, but
Yeah.
just in 2026, I just don't think that's a name I'm super high on.
Okay, I'll spin back on him. Amir Coffee.
Also cold.
Yeah, he's
Man,
the coldest. Well, actually, wait, let me just throw out the other, and we can get into why Amir Coffee just isn't a basketball player anymore. Has fallen off the face of the earth. Doug McDermott.
man, where are you put? What year is it that you're pulling these names out and throwing them at me? Let's stick cold on that one as well. Uh,
That's like Ice Chamber, Mr. Freeze. Um, Lindy Waters. Let's just go back there really quick. I just think the fact that he was with the Spurs last year, played a minutes here and there, and is a reliable 3-point shooter. That's why I would, and he's younger than anyone else I just named. That's why I would invest in him if I had to get a back of the roster guy that I could trust. This guy goes down tonight. We can bring in Lindy, and he's going to go 1 for 3 from three and make a layup and go, 2 of 4 on the night.
yeah, I mean, hey, relative to the names that you kind of threw at me there, I mean, it's hard to say he's not the second best among them.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's been on some good teams to your point, whether it be the Spurs, whether it be the Warriors, those are good programs. And yeah, to your point, hey, we're talking about like the 14th and the 15th spot on this roster. And if, you're picking from guys that would typically fit into those kind of positions, I think you could do worse than Waters. Okay, you've swayed me a little bit. Let's take
What
that
about
up
Bruce
to,
Brown?
does he want to be back in Toronto?
No, I don't think
I,
so.
I can't imagine, man. I think of Bruce Brown. I think of those like silly cowboy outfits
Oh
that you would
yeah,
kind of see on the
that's where my mind. I
sidelines.
was literally gonna make a joke, be like, he loves the mountains, like horseback riding in the mountains.
Man, he should stay. He should stick around in Denver if that's the case. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think
Oh,
the Lonnie Walker signing might actually be a sign that no
yeah, you
shot he's going back.
cooked them. Yeah. Okay, so do you have any names or like would you consider Nate Biddle, who's going to be at camp, as a guy that they could potentially give a standard contract to?
Yeah, I think if you're the Raptors, well, if you're looking at the Raptors, let's just assume that Kawhi Leonard trade is gonna go through because I think that's important to this conversation. Assuming the Leonard trade is through, you are at 13 players on the roster with one roster spot that you have to fill now. And I think the strategy is with the other roster spot, you're probably gonna you're going to keep that open. And I think you either look to elevate one of your two-way guys as the season goes along to a standard deal, or you potentially look to see what trickles in off the buyout market. So I think assuming Kawhi's on this team and assuming you got the two open roster spots, you're going to be filling one of them now, and you're going to be waiting to fill one of them later in the year throughout 2026, 27. In terms of guys that stand out now, man, I'm not going to lie to you. It is a slim pool of players out
Yeah, I
there
just
right
named Doug
now.
McDermott in the Big 2-6. So yeah, I'm well aware. The Spo track, like I thought they were trolling.
Man, I say this kind of jokingly, but I also say this half seriously. Emphasis on the half. Could you talk yourself into a Russell Westbrook on a minimum deal?
See, that's a name. That's totally a name that I saw and I thought about writing down. I could. It's just like, what does that mean for Jamal Shed?
I mean,
Because if I have Russ, I want to play Russ. I think Russ is like I think the fact that he isn't signed right now is ridiculous because as much as you could say like, hey, he didn't do this or he didn't do that, like he was damn good in Denver and he was damn good for the Kings last year. So he can still play and be a backup point guard in my opinion.
I think the issue with him is that obviously Russ has his own unique. Russ is at his best when you're just kind of letting him be Russ. And I think the challenge is because he hasn't really evolved and adapted much like in the latter years of his career, it's harder. It becomes harder and harder with every passing year to kind of let Russ be Russ when, he's not a superstar anymore. He's not a star anymore. He's not I mean, he was still a starter, but he on the Sacramento Kings,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
it
not
doesn't. Yeah,
respectfully worth much because it's the Kings.
yeah, they
Um,
suck.
I don't think that affects Jamal Shed whatsoever, personally. I think Shed is still the clear and de facto like backup point guard, but if you want a veteran in on this team, especially with Emmanuel Quickly's injury history, which has been rough, or at the very least, untimely injury history.
Mhm.
Russ is somebody that could give you those spot minutes when you need him.
Yeah, yeah. I don't hate the idea. I just again go back to like, well, if he comes here. Like, and again, this totally could be irrelevant because what Emmanuel quickly could just get hurt again and play. He had a healthy regular season last year, but say he gets hurt, he misses 20 games in the first 4 months of the season. It's like, well, if you had Russell Westbrook, you could either plug him into the starting lineup, you could have him come off the bench, be a spark. Like, there's opportunity for Russ. And I think having a point guard like Russ off the bench with this second unit, who is a lot of just role player guys who don't need the ball in their hands other than Jamal Shed to really get stuff cooking. I think that's the type of guy you want. It's just like right now, I don't see the fit. But if someone goes down with injury, it would make sense. So, and I think he has a good relationship with Kawhi too. So it's like I would be open to the idea. It's just I can't also see the Raptors being like, let's do it.
Yeah.
But man, I
Well,
want to see him back in the league next year. Like I'm scanning in my head teams, and it's like, where could he go?
I find it hard to believe that quite. I think if the Kings don't give him a contract, it might be a while until somebody gives him a contract. It might be closer to the start of the season, closer to training
Well, yeah,
camp.
he signed like a week before the season last year, didn't he? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously he's not going to have the same role with the Kings this year. They got a youth movement that they want to, go head first into. But I just really, it's tough to envision many other spots in the league where Russ still comes in and gets to play something close to his brand of basketball.
where could he go? Bro, bring him to Boston. No, no.
Between PG and Russ, you're cooking there. You're cooking there on the
Yeah, buddy.
Celtics.
2019 OKC plus Jason Tatum. Sign me up, man.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
I'm
gonna.
trying to Golden State, like, no, they just have DeAnthony Melton and Gary Payton and Pot. Like, yeah, see, there's not really a spot for him.
Yeah, I think Miami is one that gets floated with like so many of
Oh,
these
oh,
old guys.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's a Heat move.
yeah,
I think the Heat ultimately will be the team to get Beal. I just think they can offer him the biggest possible role. I just want to put that out there.
yeah.
Okay. So do you have any other notes on filling out the roster? Do we envision a trade at all, or do you think we're set on that and can move on to Shed and RJ Barrett extensions?
I think the shed extension is something that I really want to talk about because this will get into something that we are going to talk about later in terms of restricted free agency. But obviously, Jamal Shed is not too far away from potentially dealing with his own restricted free agency saga. And I think if you're the Raptors, you kind of want to avoid that at all costs, don't you? Especially if you can get him. I think of Jamal Shed's situation as something maybe similar to, I'm going to throw the comparison out there, and I don't necessarily mean it in the way that I think he's going to hit the same highs, but I think if you can get Jamal Shed on a nice and manageable contract now, like 2 years from now, whatever the case is, 3 years from now, I think he starts to look maybe like an AJ Mitchell type of value, or he starts to look like an Austin Reeves type of value, where he's going to really get to that point where he's outplaying what his contract is worth. And I like Shed. I have such a high opinion of him. I think he's going to be such a reliable player in the Raptors rotation for a long time. And if you're Toronto, I don't think you want to let this get to restricted free agency next summer. I think you want to get him on extension as quickly as you can.
What's your price range? Because I agree with everything you just said. What's your price range? What type of contract would you be willing to give? What is he, 20? Is he 25 now, I believe? 25-year-old Jamal Shed.
Yeah, he came in as a bit of an older guy in the second round there, and he's 24 years old, so still a little bit on the older side,
Oh,
heading into his
freshly
third year.
freshly 24 too. That's nothing. That's nothing. Yeah, that's slight.
I think if this is a guy that you can kind of get on a deal kind of in that like 6 to 8 million range, you'll like He'll outplay it
Mhm.
in a few years.
Yep. I
Yeah,
fully
like
agree. I would give him the Trey Jones, like you know what Chicago gave Trey Jones last summer, where it was like, I think it was 3 years. I would go 4 years with a team option for that fourth year, and you go eight, and it progressively gets a little. I mean, theirs was just a flat 8 million each year. Maybe go slightly up, just give him that assurance that hey, you're not going to be stuck at the same price point forever. The thing I wanted to throw at you because I just pulled up the counting stats. I didn't realize he averaged 5.5 assists per game last year. Like for a bench player, that's ridiculous. And it's like he shot 36% from the field, 32 from three. If he can get that to 35 from three and 43% from the field and average 8 and 6, that's a top three, top five backup point guard in the league. So my question to you is though, do you ever envision a path where he's the Raptors starting point guard?
I wouldn't rule it out. I think given the fact that Quickly's contract is one that you might just kind of end up trading or packaging away for a star deal, there is a path where I think Jamal Shed does become a starter in the league. And quite frankly, again, that's why I think you also want to kind of get him on that cost controlled
Agreed.
contract because, you know, he's a guy that I think if he's starting more regular, and in particular, if he's starting around some real star power, that passing does really show itself off a lot more. And quite frankly, I do think the percentages go up when you're more regularly surrounded by star players that can create shots for themselves. And really, like I think about a Kawhi, right? Like a Kawhi Leonard is going to draw so much offensive attention that I think a lot of guys are going to end up shooting naturally easier shots, even if it's not Kawhi that is, setting up those shots with his playmaking, because he is such a scoring threat, teams are going to naturally gravitate to his side. And if you're Jamal Shed that's camping out like on the other side in the corner, or you're even like if you're getting that kick out, like I think that's going to be such an easier look next season than it would have been this past season, where I don't think anybody really drew that kind of attention. Like maybe you make the case that Brandon Ingram was kind of drawing defenders that way, but I don't think anybody's going to legitimately make the case that Ingram will draw defenders in the same way that a Kawhi Leonard does. So I like Shed is a guy who I think the offense and in particular the scoring is really going to come around. And we already know he's so good defensively and so good as a playmaker that I think the faster you can secure his future, the quicker, that contract is going to start to age gracefully.
I look at the Raptors too, man, and it's like they have Scotty Barnes, you have Colin Murray Boyles. They've always been a team that embraces having all this size, but a lot of the time they want all this size so they can have a little point guard conducting the offense. So I fully agree with what you mentioned about Emmanuel quickly because it's like down the road, let's say they want to go get a star center, and it's like we're going to mortgage 2 first-round picks. We're going to give you Quickly, who's got a year left, and Pirtle, who's got 2 years left, and we're going to go get a Joel Embiid when he's playing caliber center or a Bam and a Bio or something like that. Like if they get in a situation like that, I think you need to be able to have a point guard still. And I think, like you said, signing Jamal Shed now, getting the deal done, because no matter what he does, if he stayed as a 6-6 guy who shot 37% from the field and 33 from three, you're still walking out on top in a deal where he's making max $10 million. So it does depend what his camp brings to the table. It depends on what they say. But the Raptors have a ton of leverage because they can be like, no, we have Emmanuel quickly locked up. Like, you're not going to be the starting point guard on this team. We're going to have you be an elite backup, though. And there's another guy who's extension eligible, RJ Barrett. I don't know how I feel about this. I'm in a position where it's like he's a 35% three-point shooter for his Raptors career and he doesn't fit around Scotty Barnes. And sure, people can say in the playoffs he was phenomenal, and I'm not going to take that away from him because he was incredible in the playoffs, but he wasn't playing the role he's going to be playing long term next to Scotty. He was in the Brandon Ingram role, the on ball creator role, and that's not what he's going to get to play when the Kawhi Leonard trade goes through and you have Kawhi and Scotty because they're going to dominate on ball touches on top of Emmanuel quickly, who's also going to demand that. RJ has to play off the ball, and he just can't be that guy. I wouldn't extend him. Like, I wouldn't even consider extending him, and I've been saying this since the offseason started. His value is at the highest it could possibly be after the playoffs, and you're refusing to trade him because he's the Maple Mamba. I don't really care. Cool. He's going to play for the national team. You want to cheer for him as a Canadian, cheer for him then. Right now, he's just a Toronto Raptor, and I would fully just look to trade him even right now if I could because he just doesn't fit what this team needs at the two guard.
I don't think I'm as aggressively on board with getting rid of RJ as you are. I,
Not
I see
many
your
are.
I see your points, and I think there's some validity to what you're saying in terms of the kind of role in which he shined during this past postseason, and not necessarily being one that he's going to find himself in super often. My issue, and I think what this really comes down to when it comes to an extension with RJ, is what do the Raptors view him as, and what does he view himself as? Because if you're RJ, do you think you're a star? Are you trying to get paid like star Jay Barrett, or are you trying to get paid like solid starter RJ? Because solid starter RJ, you can talk me into an extension, and I think the going price for a solid starter RJ would be somewhere between 15 to 20 million. I think 15 to 20 million, you can talk me into that extension all day long. Like no problem. Even if you're shifting that guy to the bench, hey, there's worse contracts out there for bench players. I think RJ would be perfectly fine in like whatever scenario if that's the kind of deal you're getting him on. I think that's a bargain. I think that's a good price for him. And if you on the other hand, like right now, what he's in the final year of his deal and he's going to be making 29.6 million. I don't think that's necessarily the type of money that you can bring him back on and feel good about bringing him back on. Like there's a lot of worse players in the NBA than RJ Barrett. I think he is a very capable starting caliber player in the NBA. And I think, in moments like last playoffs, when the time calls for it, when he has to take on an expanded role, he's shown flashes and glimpses of being able to elevate. I still think there is a very finite ceiling that you can have as a team if RJ Barrett is a highly paid player on your roster. I think if RJ Barrett is a decently paid player on your roster, I think you're fine. I just think if you're the Raptors, spending big on him being essentially in that de facto third star role, you're not gonna end up going over the top with him earning that money.
I'm gonna say this though right now, like that's why I say trade him because I don't see a world where if I'm RJ Barrett, I just carried you guys in a playoff run, or not carried, but was the arguably the second or third most important player on a team in a series where like one extra shot goes down, two extra shots go down. The Raptors are in round two. I look at that and I say, okay, well, I just did that. I'm better than Emmanuel quickly, who you're paying 32 and a half to. And I'm still in the prime of my career and I'm making 29 million. I'm not going to take a pay cut to stay here with, especially with all the taxes and all that stuff considered. I'm not doing that. And that's why I really fear that the Raptors are going to extend RJ Barrett for 30 plus $1 million on like a 4-year contract. And it's going to age like absolute milk. And it's going to be spoiled and it's going to suck. And fans are going to turn on the Maple Mamba because he's not a fun player, a fun young player anymore. He's this older guy who is just eating touches and, not playing winning basketball. So I just like, I agree with you. If I could get him on 15, 20 million, cool, let's do it. But I don't see any world where one, RJ's people are going to do that, and two, the Raptors would even offer that low of a number because it doesn't seem realistic to me. And it sucks because I liked RJ pre-draft. I liked him with the Knicks for a bit there when he was still young and there was a lot of potential. But man, like I don't see it long term from either sides because I don't think it makes sense for either sides, and I don't think the Raptors can provide RJ the financial commitment that he should be looking for after the playoff run and after the season he just had.
Yeah, you threw a lot of nuance in there that I think is very important to keep in mind in terms of the timing of it all, where it's like, yeah, this guy's coming off a great playoff run. If there was ever a time to cash in, it would be now. And if you're Toronto, I think the quickly contract obviously hurts you, A, because it's a bad contract, but B, yeah, to your point, like, yeah, if you're RJ sitting in negotiating tables, you're looking at that deal and being like, well, why can't you pay me that kind of money when you paid him that kind of money? Well, I think the answer to that is pretty simple. The IQ contract is a bad contract. And I
Yeah.
don't think anybody's going to dispute that point, well, except for maybe Emmanuel Quigley himself. But I'd say the general consensus around the Quickly contract was it was a little rough when it was initially signed, when people looked at it and was just like, why are you paying that much money to Emmanuel Quickly? And then, we've moved on from that initial point and that initial reaction, and I think the public opinion kind of remains more or less the same as it wasn't a good deal then, still doesn't feel like a good deal now. So if you're the Raptors, I don't think you want to get into the business of handing out bad deal after bad deal, which, hey, by the way, you kind of have a bit of a track record with now with both Quickly and Jakob Poeltl. So do you really want to add RJ to that mix? And it's tough. I can get behind the long-term fit of RJ on this team. I really can. I just can't get behind it at like 30 million a year. I could get behind it at 20. I could get behind it at 20. I could even get behind it at like 20 and change.
I said 22 and a half. I wrote that down. 22 and a half would be the only amount of money I would consider if I was the Raptors in extending him long term. That's the max.
Yeah. It feels like an unpopular opinion right now, given where we are with him as a player and the most recent sample size that we've gone on him. But again, you said it all. It's important to consider the circumstances under which we all saw that. I think there's a very fine price point, and it'll be tough to really, really envision him taking the kind of deal that I think he would need to take for it to really make sense for both sides.
I also just straight up, I'm gonna say it. Like I love Jacoby Walter's fit on this team, fully healthy, and I as the starting two guard. And I also want to say, like, you know what? I have full, and I've said this before. I have full faith that when Kawhi Leonard arrives here, there's going to be no funny business this time because has the entire NBA. He's going to have the federal government breathing down him and Uncle Dennis's neck for $27 million in investments that were supposed to be spent on publicly funded homes and are getting spent on a new stadium for a USL soccer team. That's important to mention because Uncle Dennis this is the exact same situation. I see it unfolding in front of my eyes as I speak. This is going to be the exact same as Shohei Ohtani and his interpreter. Shohei was betting on games, straight up. He was fully betting on games. His interpreter took the fall, which
Allegedly.
is what's going to happen with Uncle Dennis. And then you're going to, like, Uncle Dennis is going to end up in a Pennsylvania state prison or a Rhode Island state prison the exact same way Shohei's interpreter did. So I think Kawhi is going to be on Terminator 2, zoned in, locked in, and just absolutely trying to hoop. He's going to be T1000 the rest of the way. He's going to be so locked in on playing basketball. He's not going to get to mess around with injuries and stuff. So I don't think you need to really worry about having RJ Barrett to be there and be the guy who's like, well, he's going to carry you through some games when Kawhi isn't playing. I don't really view that as value. What I see an RJ return looking like is a quality backup center and a floor spacer, and I think both those things can provide more value to a healthy Raptors team in the playoffs. I'm running out of blabbering to say about why I don't think RJ Barrett's a good signing, but I just don't. I just simply don't. I don't like his fit long term with this team.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're talking extensions briefly, like Kawhi is also going to need one, and I
True,
think if
true.
and as much as it might be, not the most comfortable idea paying somebody with Kawhi's injury history, like that is, I think, priority number one when it comes to contract extensions. And I think, quite frankly, just based on doability, I think Shed comes in
Oh,
after him at number two. And then is when you get to the, RJ Barrett size elephant in the room, and you're just like, so what's the money we like this guy at? And I think it's important to consider too, the fact that hey, maybe at some point you want to elevate your Colin Murray Boyles to the starting lineup. And at that point, who's he pushing out of that lineup? It's gonna be RJ, right? Yeah.
100%. So, I mean, RJ won't go down as one of these, but I think it's a perfect time to head to random Raptor of the week. How do you feel about that little suggestion from me?
I feel like I'm ready with what you're gonna throw at me. Hopefully.
Okay.
I,
If you need a reminder, folks, Svi gets three guesses. He gets three hints, and he starts it off with two tidbits, free tidbits of information. And those tidbits today are this guy was part of the 2019-2020 version of the Toronto Raptors post NBA championship, and he's a forward.
I'm gonna take a blind shot on the dark here because I feel like we never do this. Malcolm Miller.
No, but that's a great guess. And that was literally like, it was between him and two other guys who I was, and one of them, obviously, the one I decided. But yeah. Do you
All
want your
right.
your first hint here?
Yeah, man, give me the extra hint.
Okay. Okay. I'm not giving you options this time either because you've been cooking me on these. So he's no longer in the NBA, and the last team he played for was the Philadelphia 76ers in 2024-25.
No longer in the NBA. Last team he played for was the Sixers.
And including the Raptors, he's played for four teams in his NBA career. I'll give you both of those as one, just as one. That
And he's specifically a forward, right? Like there's no shenanigans, like guard
no
forward, none of that.
shenanigans. He's like 6'7", 6'8", from my understanding. I don't have it in front of me, but I have some stuff written down. And yeah, he's a forward.
Are we talking about NBA legend and three-time champion Patrick McCaw?
No.
Okay. I gotta be careful then. That's two guesses
Mm-hmm.
on my part. All
Yeah.
right, give me another hint. Give me another hint.
Okay. Um. hmm. There's two I could. Um. He made his Raptors debut against the team he eventually won a championship with. This is a
Team.
memorable debut, by the way. Like from that 2019. This is pre the shutdown of COVID too. This was like I believe December, January time before COVID had shut down that season. So that's a little more context for you. But he made his debut for the Raptors playing on the same court he would eventually win an NBA championship on.
Interesting.
And no, this isn't a trick. Like he didn't win a championship with the Raptors. Like he wasn't part of that.
Okay. Huh. You said hmm. He's played for four teams.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Just fact checking. Yeah, 14. Yeah.
For a minute there, I was thinking it was Stanley Johnson, but that doesn't feel right. I don't think Stanley Johnson was not on the version of the Lakers that won the title. as far as I can remember. I think he came a little bit after. Oh, man, you are really making me work for it here.
Oh, bollocks. Wait, give me a sec. Okay, I have to rescind that one about him winning a championship with the team he made his debut against because he made like his first big NBA minutes were against the team he won a championship with on a back-to-back against them. So his first game, I'll give you the stat line because I butchered that. The stat line was 6 rebounds, 4 points, 1 turnover, and 2 assists. And he shot 2 for 4 from three.
So just to be clear, he didn't win the
Or sorry,
title.
2 of 4 from the field, 0 of 1 from three.
So he didn't win the title with Toronto.
No, no. So the team he played like he made his first like, oh wow, this guy's like in someone's CSM update is like, oh wow, this guy showed up in a game. Like that uh, yeah. He made his day that performance was against the same team he won a championship with.
Yeah, man, give me that final hint.
Okay.
I can't fumble this one.
Um there's two options for you, okay? I can give you the team he won the championship with, or I can give you the team he spent 3 of his 6 years in the league playing with.
Give me the team he won the title with.
He won his NBA title in 2024.
So that would have been with the Boston Celtics.
Yes.
Well, of course, you would throw a Celtics guy at me. I think that does actually help though, because it narrows it down. For a half second, well, like he's not really a forward, but I guess depending on how you look at it, like he's a power forward. I was thinking that you were trying to like lead me to Chris Boucher, but
Mhm.
very clearly you were not trying to lead me to Chris Boucher. I think this is O'Shea Brissett, right?
Bang! Yes, you hit it on the head. It's a
Oh my
great.
God. Dude, that was terrifying. I cast two shots out there and I was like, oh boy. Oh boy. Oh no. I
Yeah, the
was
two the two hints I also had on the table was he's a Toronto kid and he played for the Indiana Pacers for 3 years.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like like Pacers is where I kind of have the most memories of him. Like, man,
Mhm.
I know he was in Toronto and everything, but I'd be lying if I said I had a very clear visual of a lot of minutes with him.
Yeah.
Even like the debut that you were talking about. I'll be real, I did not have like
Oh,
a
I mean, he was also
firm
playing the Celtics, and I was younger, so I was for sure watching that entire game. So,
yeah.
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 But hey,
Hey,
great work, man. Great work. Um,
sweated that one out. I'm not gonna lie to you. You
yeah,
scared me with that one.
we're getting closer to stumping one another, like for real, for real. But we could move on now to just some general NBA talk. There's some stuff going on right now. And the biggest like talking point in free agency still remains with Peyton Watson and Jalen Duren, two guys on RFAs, like or both, sorry, are RFAs and like haven't got a contract and might be both forced to accept qualifying offers. With those two guys, where do you stand on just maybe them being a clear picture of what restricted free agency could look like for the rest of time potentially?
Yeah, I think restricted free. I'm actually quite like I guess passionate about this, maybe not the exact word, but quite on board with the fact that I think restricted free agency needs to change the next time they have an NBA like collective bargaining agreement because anytime that I think restricted free agency and I mean like it's in the name, but it so heavily favors the teams right now over the players where yeah, you kind of just get the short end of the stick if you're a player that ends up getting sent to restricted free agency because yeah, like you're kind of at the mercy of your team just being like, "Hey, we don't think you're as worth as much as you do." And in the like and offer sheets are not common practice. I think these players need a little bit more power in that situation. And hey, I understand that in general, in general, I think the big conversation is going to be about these aprons and how you're going to adjust them, like when that new CBA
Yeah.
rolls around, because these aprons have completely swung things in the favor of the teams. And hey, for my money's worth, I'd rather see a player get paid and get their bag than a team kind of lowball a guy. I'm
Yeah.
always a little bit more on the side of player empowerment and whatnot. But yeah, I don't like what restricted free agency has essentially devolved to, and I think. Man, like you look at a guy like Jalen Duren who had an all-star, all-NBA season, and he might have to take the qualifying offer. I think that should really say it all to the NBA PA of, yeah, man, we need to overhaul how this process looks because it is no longer working for us.
There needs to be, in my opinion, kind of a model like the MLB and not because the MLB does this for like 7 years of a guy's contract. There should be arbitration. Like they should be allowed when it comes if it's like, hey, we don't want to give you this deal that you're asking for. You don't want to sign the qualifying offer. Let's sit down and we're both gonna have to present our sides to a court and we're gonna have to figure this out because the fact that Jalen Duren could be making $7 million with a no trade clause on a 1 year deal, and hypothetically, let's say he snaps his leg, like I don't want that to happen. But if he does, what happens to his market then? Like a guy who was supposed to have this ascending career is now completely on a downward trajectory and is going to be losing out on so much money. But the thing I wanted to now throw at you with that is like Peyton Watson is the name where it does seem like a sign and trade could really happen. And Shams reported kind of slightly before we went on air here that Cleveland, Milwaukee, and the Clippers are all in talks for potential sign and trades with the Nuggets. Out of those three spots, which one do you like the most for Peyton Watson?
I think it's the Clippers, right? And
Yep.
I actually, Jovan Buha was talking about this on his podcast a few days back, um, where he's funny enough to tie this. Everything goes back to Kawhi eventually. Um, the Kawhi Leonard situation has kind of put the Clippers in a bind where they don't really 100% understand what their financial situation is going to look like. But assuming that the trade goes through, they have an opportunity to throw some good money at Peyton Watson. And I think that's the most likely. You kind of get that trickle down effect at that point where it's like, okay, Kawhi Leonard finally lands in Toronto. Now the Clippers are sitting in this position where they can go out there and they can take a stab at Peyton Watson. And let's say it works. Let's say they complete the sign and trade there. At that point, you get to the next person kind of in that list where it's Jonathan Kuminga, who's been sitting and asking for more money. Well, quite frankly, begging for more money for ages. So I guess yeah, like my point there being the midway path of that, I do think is Watson and the Clippers makes a good deal of sense to me. They're not playing for much next season. He can probably have a pretty expanded role by comparison to what he had with the Nuggets. So I like that fit a lot. You could also talk me into the Bucks fit as well, but yeah, I think the easy one for me is the Clippers.
Yeah, I look at that Clippers team and I would be glued to the chair because I always pick a team going into every season that's not the Pelicans, not the Raptors. That I'm like, that's my late night watch. That's my
Hmm.
team where we're on the East Coast. It's 10 o'clock. I'm a psychopath and I don't like going to bed early. Let me just throw on it would be the Clippers. I mean, we're talking about I get to watch Darius Garland, Keaton Wagler, who's one of my favorite rookies. Brandon Ingram, who is fun to watch, like objectively, he's fun to watch in the regular season. He might not be a winning player. Peyton Watson, Rui Hachimura, Yannick Niederhauser, who I think is one of the most underrated young bigs in the league, and like in my eyes, could be one of the biggest home runs the Clippers have hit in a draft in so long. You have guys like Kobe Saunders, guys like Jordan Miller, Chris Dunn still there. All guys I like watching on that team coached by Ty Lue, where they're going to be still trying to win games. Dude, sign me up. Like that team sounds like a ton of fun. And to going to Duren, out of the two of them, like it seems like Watson definitely has a way more robust market. But does that surprise you? Because I still look at Jalen Duren and I'm like, I'm a team like the Nets who, I mean, I don't really know what our financial look like right now or how he fits long term in a core of him, MPJ, and Julius Randle. But we need a center. Like there are teams out there where I'm like, why aren't you trying to find a way to get this guy if this is what his price tag looks like? How do you feel?
Yeah, I know with Duran ahead of free agency, there was a lot of talk that either the Brooklyn Nets or the Chicago Bulls, who
Yep.
were the two big money teams outside of the Lakers, that they could take a stab at him. And then obviously the Nets filled up their money with like with Julius Randle, so they kind of started
And then the
dwindling
Bulls
down.
did got their center in that same trade, right? With
Yeah,
Claxton.
they got Nick Claxton for essentially free. Well, not
Literally
essentially free. They got him for
they for
exactly
free.
free.
I love it. I
Um,
love it. Great move by them. But yeah.
Yeah. And then at that point, it's like, okay, well, Duran's had the two teams that were largely connected to him just kind of removed from the picture. And then you had a bit of a saga briefly with the LA Lakers where it was Sam Amick that was reporting that, hey, Duran and the Lakers are having negotiations. They have a good understanding of like price point and everything like that. Things are going well. And you find out it's essentially a leverage play by the Lakers against the Jazz because I think the Walker Kessler news literally broke the day after that Amick reporting was coming out. So all of a sudden, you had Jalen Duren sitting there, and well, Detroit looks like his only home because yeah, nobody else is really throwing that offer sheet at him. Which yeah, like I think is well, I guess like offer sheet wise, I get it. I don't think anybody could really properly throw an offer sheet at him at this point that would or at least make sense for him. And when it comes to the Pistons situation, they said ahead of free agency multiple times they want to keep him. And there were reports that they were not interested in doing a sign and trade with anybody. So you got Duran essentially stuck in limbo right now where he can't get the contract that he wants. The Pistons are not going to budge on the money, or at least they haven't budged on the money yet. So, man, I think that's genuinely one that might go to the qualifying offer. Or honestly, Duran might just lose out on well, millions in that situation.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about the fact that like, and if what there's even if they like taking money out of the conversation, what team even makes sense for him as a player anymore? It's like you don't really have options
I mean, I don't think you can take money out of the conversation because I think that's such an
for sure.
important part of the conversation. I mean, if you're talking just straight fit, hell, the Golden State Warriors haven't done jack squat.
Yeah, wait, why? Because they can sign and trade Porzingis too. Why wouldn't Golden State? I mean, no one knows what the hell. Also, can we talk about something? The fact that they were just like, oh, Draymond, like, yeah, here's your contract back. That was so stupid. I'm sorry. Like, I get that that was probably a handshake agreement. We don't get Braun. You're gonna take this, but bro, like, what are we doing? Why? Why would you put yourself in that position? That's not now a guy making heavy money that you're just never gonna trade.
Yeah, well, I mean, well, he doesn't have the no trade clause anymore. I think that is important. So if you really did want to trade him, you can. He also comes off the books next year. So like I don't necessarily hate that move. I hate the Warriors offseason overall. I think they've completely failed Steph Curry yet again. Um, specifically in the Mike Dunleavy era of being a general manager in
Yeah.
Golden State. But I gotta disagree with you on that one there, where it's like I don't hate the green contract. But yeah, if we're talking just hypothetically, hey, what team could use a Jalen Duren? I think the Warriors are like right up there in terms of hey, they just kind of need anybody and they need any type of talent. But in terms of realistic options for him in free agency, I really don't think unless a long-term deal gets done with Detroit, I think a qualifying offer might have to be a bet that he takes.
Yeah, that's fair. Because even teams like Phoenix, who like would love that type of center on their team, they're capped up. They have their guys at center and Malawach and Mark Williams. So it's odd. Another thing I wanted to throw out at you was uh Anthony Davis. The Wizards are hesitant to give him a contract extension because they want to see his health now that he's eligible for a 4-year extension. Does that not just seem like that it came from Shams too? Does that not just seem like, well, like obviously, why would you? You just gave Trey like how horrific would we think of that Wizards front office that has done a pretty good job up until the Trey Young extension if they gave Anthony Davis an extension?
Yeah, I mean, the whole like, well, we want to see if Anthony Davis is going to be healthy before we give him an extension is such a fork found in kitchen moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, like, come on. Of course you do. It's 2026. The guy has barely been healthy over the past 2 years, and we know that at his best, yeah, this is a guy that, was once a top 10, top five player in the NBA. I think I don't want to say far removed, but we're removed from those days. I don't think he's even healthy right now, really scratching the top 10.
Yeah.
Not to
No,
say that
he's
he's
not, bro. Come on. He's not scratching like the top 25.
healthy. Health,
No.
uh,
Because
I
he's just
agree.
never, I can't do the hell. Like, I can't do the healthy argument with Anthony Davis because he's just not healthy
And
ever.
that's
It'd
fair.
be
And that's fair. And that's
it'd be
kind of
one
my
thing to say that about Kawhi, where it's like Kawhi healthy is a top 5 guy, and like that would be different to me. I can't with AD. I'm done with that.
yeah, and that's kind of the conversation there is like I think if you're waiting for Anthony Davis's health to give him a contract extension, you're going to be waiting for a long time.